Hey, lovely Felicity, how's it all going today?
It's another awesome day. I have to say, at the moment, things are just going so well, and I'm really grateful, despite the fact that we're in lockdown. There's just so many opportunities. So
It's
yeah, I'm loving it. How
been
about you?
cute, very productive. I feel like I'm on it and I'm getting stuff done. I'm not procrastinating. I'm taking steps forward in the right direction. So that's really positive.
And
And
action is the biggest thing for you, isn't it? You love to be taking action.
oh my God, I love to be taking action. And I'm going to be so inspired today from
Yeah.
Anne. We've got the lovely Ann Carden with us today. Have I pronounced your name right, Anne?
You absolutely did.
I have.
Hello, everyone.
This is the lovely Anne. She's looking beautiful. She's a blonde bombshell with this beautiful red. You look gorgeous in that colour. It suits you. It's lovely.
You. Thank you. Thank you.
Really lovely. So welcome to the Crossroads Cafe podcast, Anne. So we run these podcasts. We've been doing this now, Felicity, for just over a year? Oh, no, probably not. Would it
Just
be a year?
because it was when we went into lockdown, really, we started to do the podcast, wasn't it?
That's it, yeah. And we were just explaining to Anne, we were speaking to women that just felt they were at a bit of a crossroads. Some working employed, some at home and just undecided as to what route to take, what to do with their career. So we thought, right, we're going to reach out to women, hear from them, learn from other entrepreneurs, and just hear their stories of success. And I have to say, Anne, I've been doing a little bit of digging on you, and you've had a big career. You've had lots of pivots by the looks of it. So it'd be lovely to hear your story and just sort of hear how it all started and how it's got you to where you are today.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I want to thank both of you for having me on.
Wow.
I always love sharing and being able to add value out into the world, and especially with entrepreneurs and people that are looking for a business or starting a business. So thanks so much. So my story actually goes back 41 years in business, marketing, and sales. And I worked 13 years in corporate. And I managed multiple $1-million departments in a multi-billion-dollar organization. And after 13 years, in that time, I had some babies. And
How many children do you have?
I have two. They're now 33 and 32 years old.
Oh,
so,
my goodness.
but I have triplet 4-year-old grandbabies.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
so that keeps you busy.
Well, they're not close. They don't live close to me. They're about 12 hours away. I wish they did.
I bet you do, yeah.
So they keep me busy when I'm there. But so I had kids, and being in corporate, it wasn't very forgiving if the kids got sick and all of that. And, I was feeling called to be a stay-at-home mom and leave my career. And so I did that. We did that. My husband and I made a move halfway across the country back to our roots. And we wanted to raise the kids around family. We were living in California at the time, and all of our family was kind of in Missouri. So we made that move back, and I moved back with no opportunity because we moved to the country. And this was 29 years ago. So we moved to the country. We had one vehicle. My husband drove back and forth to the city, and we didn't have any means for me to really work. I mean, there just wasn't a lot of opportunity where we were. It was a small town, and we lived outside the small town. So it wasn't very long before we were feeling very financially strapped. And everything that my kids, it was kind of like when I think back to how hard it was, I baked everything from scratch. I made everything, like anything I could do to save a penny, literally. We had no money to stretch. I couldn't squeeze another dime out of my husband's pay. And it was so hard leaving that income, leaving that second income and everything, but I knew it was what I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And so I started looking for a way to make money the day my 4-year-old son needed shoes, and we didn't have an extra dollar to do that. And I literally sat down at my kitchen table and I cried. I was so stressed from all the financial hardship and everything. And we were trying to keep our home, and we were trying to keep, a car, and we weren't living lavishly or anything like that. So I sat down and started looking for a way, and I had always been very, very creative. And I used to use creativity as sort of an outlet when I was in corporate to kind of relieve stress. And so when my son was born, I fixed up his nursery and I made little things for his nursery. So I had this box of stuff that was in the basement of my home, and it was probably worth $10 or $15. And I thought, I wonder if I can make something out of some of this and take it to a little store in town and maybe sell some of these things. So I did that. And after 2 weeks, I kept going back and calling her, okay, has anything sold? And she said, no, 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 nothing is sold. So I'm like, okay, this isn't working. So I said, well, tell me what is selling. And she showed me this doll that was a rabbit doll, like an animal doll. And she said, these are the hottest thing I have in the store. And I thought, a rabbit doll? I have no idea.
Like a material, a soft
Yes,
rabbit
like a
doll.
soft cloth
Right.
doll, but it was a rabbit. Yes, and it was really pretty. It was, it was the kind that sat on a bed or sat,
Yeah.
in a home or whatever. So I thought, I have no idea how to make it, a rabbit doll, but I thought, well, I'm going to figure it out if that's what's selling. So a little market research there. If that's what's selling, then I'm going to come up with some version. So I started looking at patterns, and I just started really kind of doing my research, and I had to go to a store. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have all of the things we have today. So I started looking through everything, and I took some ideas home, and I did my own pattern, and I came up with my own version of a rabbit doll, and I made up a couple of them. And I took them into the store, and she goes, oh, I borrowed my mom's sewing machine. I didn't even own a sewing machine. So borrowed my mom's sewing machine. I took them in, and they sold right away. I mean, almost, she said, these are going to sell like hotcakes. And so from there, it turned into a global business where I shipped my dolls. It wasn't just rabbits. I did all kinds of dolls.
Oh my goodness.
Basically running a manufacturing company out of my home. So I employed several other moms, I don't know, 7 or 9 other moms. They were coming in and out of my house with doll parts, and, they were cutting pieces for me, and I was doing all the finishing work. And long story short, I was in stores all across the country. I was shipping all over the world. I had to do everything the old fashioned way. So I was advertising in an international magazine, and that's how it became global. And so yeah, 7 years I did that business. And then it got to where I designed all my own patterns, and I was selling my patterns. And so 7 years doing that. And I just, after all of that time, I remember the day I got an order from Iceland. I was like, Iceland. I mean, this is, and this was, again, before technology, before everything we have now. Now that wouldn't seem like a big deal to people, but back then it really was. And my dolls made the cover of the international magazine that I was advertising in. They were selected. I didn't pay for the cover. They were actually selected from all of the crafters and the people that were in the magazine. So that was a huge win for me as well for my business, and a huge boost for my business. And so that was my first business. And then after that, I sold it. I was just tired of it. It was really a grind, to do everything handmade. And so I sold that, and I started in the fitness industry. And long story short, I started the fitness business by starting fitness classes out of a little bitty community hall. And I had 30 people. I kind of built it up. I went to a back to school barbecue with my kids' school, and I said, hey, I think I'm going to do fitness classes. Do the moms want to come? And long story short, 2 health clubs later, 2 weight loss centers, sold all 5 of those businesses.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So I've had really a lot of success in business, but I've also learned a lot. Everything wasn't easy, and I didn't have coaches, and I didn't have all the things that we have available today. So that's my passion for coaching and consulting, because I can't even imagine if I would have had a me who knew what she was doing back then. So here I am, this is my 6th business, and I've been doing this almost 10 years. I started actually coaching and consulting when I still had my last 2 businesses before I sold them. And I wanted to sell them because coaching and consulting was starting to take over. And I was so passionate about it. So I was like, I'm ready to not be held down in my business. I had brick and mortar businesses. And so I thought, I'm ready to not be held down, and be able to be more mobile and, take advantage of all of the technology and everything that we had. So yeah, so I've been doing this almost 10 years. So it's been fun.
Really, there's a few things that I've picked up as we've gone along. I'd love you to kind of drill down
Me
on
too.
sure. First thing, Anne, is not having shoes for your son. If that's not a compelling why I need to do this, I don't know what it is. I don't know what is. I mean, because it's not about you anymore, is it? It's about your family. So that will get you fired up. And Emma and I talk about this. You've got to keep reconnecting with a powerful why that will keep you going when things are really tough. And the other thing I put, your creativity and your adaptability and absolute commitment to finding a solution to something. The fact that you have these different businesses, that's what we need as entrepreneurs and business owners, don't we? We need to be flexible. We need to be able to pivot. Everybody knows that now. In COVID, it's actually become a point, and it was for you anyway, but for globally, it's a point of if you do not pivot and adapt, we're going to be like the dinosaurs, aren't we? We won't last. We need to have flexibility and adaptability.
Yeah. And, I mean, that's, it's so funny because I kind of take that for granted because that really is just, I say I'm too stubborn. That's probably the problem.
Yes.
But I kind of take it for granted because it is just kind of the way I'm wired. I'm not someone that gives up, and I keep, I always look for the way or find the way. But, even I didn't say this, but even when my fitness business started, the reason that started is because the craft industry was changing across the country. And people were like getting it from China and different places. And so I almost couldn't make it as cheap as people could buy ready-made things. And so I saw that there had to be a shift there, because the market was kind of going away. And, but in that process of running that manufacturing company, I had gained 50 pounds. And and so I found myself in a crossroads. This is a perfect title because that's exactly where I found myself. I'm at a crossroads here. This business, I don't think is going to keep going. You also have to know when to get out of business. That's a really important point too. And so I thought, while I still have things going, this is the time to exit this. And, but I also I was heavier than I'd ever been in my life. And I didn't feel good. I wasn't taking good care of myself like a lot of entrepreneurs. And I found myself at this crossroads, like, what do I do now? I mean, I still want to be here for my kids. I still want to be able to go to their school events and do all of that. And I really was kind of depressed at that time. Like, I don't know what my next step is here. And the only thing I really knew that I had control of at that time was to start taking better care of myself. But through that process, I fell in love with fitness, and I fell in love with, nutrition. And so I went back to school and I got educated on that. And that's how that all started. So everything that I've ever done along the way has come out of kind of a problem.
Yeah.
If
trying to find a solution. So like when you talk about now you're doing your coaching, back then you didn't have that. You openly say there wasn't those sorts of services around. So how did you learn, and how did you grow, and how did you adapt? Because, you obviously were on a mission. You had a reason, and there was something that was pushing you, and you've obviously got that ability, must be very disciplined just to keep going. But how did you work it all out? What were the tools that you had access to, if any?
Not much. I mean, to be quite honest, it wasn't until my last 2 businesses that I hired my first coach. But along the way, I did go to a couple of I did go to a couple of conferences. I did read some books. But, I kind of didn't know. I didn't really have the exposure that we needed all of that. So I was just doing what most business people do. They just follow their instincts, and they just, the one thing that I did learn, like, I think because I worked in corporate, in retail management and all of that, I did have some business savvy. So it wasn't like I didn't know anything about business. I understood money. I understood, all those things. I've always kind of been in a business where I could be somewhat creative, and because that's my nature, and which is why an office thing would never work for me. I outsource all that. I have to stay very creative, and that's just how I'm wired. But the last two businesses that I had, I hired my first coach, and I remember um, her showing me, I was having trouble with those last two businesses. I still owned two others. So I was running four at the same time. I expanded during the recession when everybody was shutting down. I looked at that as an opportunity to expand. But my reason for expanding was, okay, so everything's kind of getting tough, right? The economy's taken this huge hit. So if I can't make the money that I was with the businesses I have, I'm going to add on. That was my thinking. So I'm going to expand. Brilliant. It actually is now a strategy that I teach people. You don't back down, you don't pull back, you expand in these tough times. And because
there's always opportunity in the tough times, isn't there?
That's right.
Because a lot of people are sat back in fear, aren't they? And you've got that opportunity to go, right, come on, I'm going to do this.
Oh, don't get me wrong. It was scary. My husband and I put everything on the line. I mean, we could have lost our home. We could have lost property that we had accumulated through everything that we had worked so hard for through the years. We could have lost with that expansion. But I just knew that it was the right thing to do. But then I couldn't get those two businesses beyond break even. They were not profitable. And I was running back and forth between both businesses, and they were about 45 minutes apart. So it was a lot. And for an entire year trying to get those businesses going, they just weren't making any money. And I was basically working those two businesses for free. And I was exhausted. And my husband finally said, look, something's got to give. And I came across a coach, and I had no idea what she could do for me, but I knew she was brilliant at what she had done in business. And I hired her, and I literally was so scared. And, the funny thing is I was not ever scared to invest or to do anything like that, but I was so scared to invest in her because I didn't really have a good understanding of what a coach could do. And she showed me what I was doing wrong. In the first 30 days, everything turned around and it clicked. And I said, you mean I have control over this stuff? Like part of it was marketing. I wasn't a good marketer, and I burned up hundreds of thousands of dollars through the years in building businesses in marketing that, wasn't working real well. And when she showed me what I was doing wrong, I was like, oh, it was like a light bulb. It was the biggest aha. And I thought, oh my gosh. And that is what fueled me to want to become a coach and a consultant. First, I got hungry for myself, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to learn everything I can. Well, then I bought everything I could get a hold of. And, and then I started testing it on, I had met a lot of business owners and, from networking and all of that. And so the way I launched my coaching and consulting business, and by then I had sold the other two. So that sale went through. And then I'm like, okay, I can sell these too. Now that I know what I'm doing there, I can sell these too. And so I started asking the business owners I knew, hey, I think I want to do, coaching or consulting, and would you let me help you with your business? And that was how I got my first clients. And they're like, yeah. And so I didn't charge a lot. But my very first client, I helped her have a 300% increase in her store in the first week. And I thought, I did not charge enough. I do know what I'm doing here. And then it was kind of the same with all the clients that I worked with. And I thought, I have a knack for this. And that just fueled it even more. So I say I probably got a 6-year, college degree, 6 years of college in probably a year, because I was consuming back and forth on my drive, hours and hours a day, anything and everything. And, I'm still like that. I still am constantly learning. One of the things I always prided myself on in business was staying ahead of the curve, looking for where everybody else wasn't, and trying to really keep myself above. And that's what made my businesses successful as well. Always looking for that sort of niche.
Edge, that's so important, isn't it? And as Emma said earlier as well, and so often people do the opposite, don't they? They think and go into fear,
right?
And and I work in consulting and coaching as well, and that's one of the first things that companies shut down on, isn't it? It's like, oh, we can't stand, we can't expend that budget. And that's like, this is the perfect time for you to do that. Invest in your people, invest in your growth, because everybody else is, cutting back, and you can really increase your market lead by yeah.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
And when I opened those other two businesses in the downturn in the market, in the recession, I was able to take advantage of lower rent. Like I negotiated rent at a much, much lower level than what other people were. I was even able to, during that recession, to even renegotiate the rent where I was in that health club and that weight loss center that I already currently had. I was able to pick up advertising a lot cheaper. I was able to, there were so many benefits. Also, I was able to get great employees because there was a downturn in the market and people were looking for jobs where everybody else was laying off. I was hiring. And so all of that was a benefit to doing something bold, really, in a downturn. So I did learn,
I love that.
I learned all of that. Yeah.
Well, they say, don't they?
That's amazing.
Fortune favors the bold, and and I think as entrepreneurs we can't ever afford not to be. And it doesn't mean like you demonstrate. You might make some investments that don't work out, but that's not the end of the world. You just pick yourself up, learn from it, and keep going, don't you?
Absolutely.
Definitely. I have a question through all of this though, and I know people listening, because I want to know your answer to this, will be thinking the same thing. How do you deal with the mum guilt in having your businesses and they become your babies, don't they? They become you. I know for me, I find it really consuming. I have this vision of where I want to go, and it's like I can't get it out of my head. But obviously, I've got 3 children. I've got 3 girls. My youngest is 4, and my eldest is just turned 11. So I feel for me, it's always this juggle. If I'm in work mode and I'm productive and I'm on it, I feel bad that I'm not with the kids. And when I'm with the kids, which I love being with the kids, I feel bad that I'm not focusing on work, on my business. How do you, or is it just one of those things you just ride?
No, you want to know how I did it? So when my kids were little, when my kids were little, so step number 1 is don't try to do everything yourself, or you'll never have time with your kids, or you won't have a business, one or the other. Okay. So that's why I ended up with a manufacturing company out of my home, because I made sure, first of all, that my pricing and everything was good enough that I could hire help. And so where I normally would have been trying to do everything myself, I did the most important pieces, and I let everyone else do the stuffing and the cutting and even sewing a lot of the pieces, that kind of thing. So the first thing is realize that you can't do everything yourself, and you need to outsource, so that if my time has always been more important than money, because you can make more money all the time. You cannot make more time. But what I would do is I was very disciplined in the fact that I was up sometimes at 3:30 in the morning or 3 in the morning, and I was working on my business. I was making dolls, and I was doing all of that before my kids would get up at 6:30 or 7 o'clock. So I would have a good 4.5 or 5 hours. And then I would work some throughout the day, but I didn't have to work all day long. If they had school activities, I was there, and anything and everything that I could do to bring them into the business with me a little bit, I would do. So let them be part of it. But then the other thing is I would work late into the night as well. So I didn't sleep a lot back then. I don't think I couldn't probably function on that now, but back then I did. But it was so important to me to be successful with that, because it was helping my family. And then also just the drive in me, which is just how I'm wired. But it was so important. But I am a big believer, if you want something, you'll find a way. And it doesn't have to be at the sacrifice of everything else. And I'm not saying it hasn't been easy, but I have been married to my husband. We'll have 40 years this year. My kids do well. I have wonderful kids. I mean, somewhere some things went right. And the other thing is they saw all that hard work. They saw me be successful. I remember when I wanted to start my fitness business, my husband wasn't so on board. He's like, really? You want to run fitness classes out of a community hall? And I remember my son sitting at the table, and he was about 8 at the time or so. And he said, Well, mom already built one really successful business. I don't know if those were quite the words he used, but he said, "Oh, I think she'll be great." So what, here's this
Oh,
little guy. So what does that, I know.
oh,
And so the thing is, you also have to look at what you're leading them. You're leading
yeah,
them. So
totally.
it
Yeah,
can't all be guilt. They
yeah,
have to see you be more than
no,
a mom. They have to see
yeah,
that. You have to
yeah,
inspire them. My dad was an entrepreneur all the time that I was growing up. My dad
yeah,
had his own businesses. They weren't easy. He went through a lot of hard times, and just like me, he
yeah,
had to figure a lot of stuff out. But I think I learned that you work hard, and that, you could
mm,
create something. Um, we always had, and we weren't wealthy, but we did well. My dad
mm,
provided, and we did well. And I saw that. I saw, when you have your own business, what that can do to your lifestyle and what that can do to your
mm,
life. And
yeah,
yeah, so you're inspiring your kids too. So you have to kind of flip the guilt and think, how
yes,
can I balance this? Yeah. How can I find time for this? But it's also inspiring them. So I think you have to
yes,
just change your mindset around, the whole guilt thing, because there's no place for that. But my kids, I used to do shows on the weekend, even like craft shows and things like that. My kids would go with me and help me set up, and, they wouldn't stay, but they would help set up. And even when I ran my fitness business, they would come and they would play while I did my fitness classes. So as long as you don't leave them out, you don't have
mm.
anything to feel guilty about. You're inspiring them.
And I
Oh,
think that's such a good example as well. I totally agree with everything you've just said there, Anne. But that's such a good example for your kids to see you doing the exercise. I'm a qualified personal trainer. That's what I did just after my
Oh,
eldest was born. Yeah,
mhm.
I've always loved fitness. And my partner said to me, like, if you could do anything, what would you do? And I was working in insurance at the time, but I said I'd love to do PT. So I qualified and I did it in the evenings. And I was doing 3 days after Kitty was born in the office.
Mhm.
Um, but they've always loved exercise, my kids, because they've always seen me do it. I mean, even
Right.
yesterday morning, I was in here with my little one, Ruby. I was doing yoga and she's got the mat out and she's doing it with me. So
Mhm.
I think that is such an inspiring thing for kids to see, seeing you actually exercising and working out, because it's what they're going to take with them as they
Right.
grow up, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. And they used to come into my gym, and, they would see me running boot camps. And I worked a lot in my business. I trained, as well. And I ran a lot of
Brilliant.
classes. And so they would see all of that. All of that is an inspiration to your kids. All of that pours in
Yeah.
to your kids. So I love that you said that. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Felicity.
no, not at all. I was just thinking again that it sounds like, I know that you've inspired your children and they've got involved, but it sounds like you had quite a lot of support from your husband as well. And
Not always.
not always, not with fitness business, but um,
we had our arguments.
okay, okay. But he understood what you were doing and where you were going with that, because Emma and I talk about quite often, you need to have a tribe that's going to support you, and it
Yes.
isn't your partner and it isn't your family. Because my family, well, my dad was an entrepreneur actually. We used to have a corner stores when I was really little, but he died when I was quite young. And then when I started to work for myself, my mum, bless her heart, even though I was earning so much more money than I had done when I was employed, she when are you going to get a proper job? When are you going to?
Mm,
That's hard, isn't it, as an entrepreneur, to deal with your own
right.
and worries, and everybody else is on
It's all
top.
they know.
Yeah.
It's all they know, isn't it? That's the thing. That
Yeah.
they're not. They don't know any different.
So, what would you say to that, Anne, about finding people that support you?
Whoops, you kind of cut out there. I didn't hear.
So, I was saying,
Oh, there we go.
it's important, isn't it, to have your tribe around you. So, if you don't have
It
some
is.
family, what would you suggest to our listeners?
Yeah, I think that definitely is important. Now, as far as my husband, oh my gosh, he is I couldn't have done without him, right? Because there's ups and downs in business, right? And he always had, he was an employee, and of a company. And so he always had that. But, you know, we had our struggles because I have an entrepreneur mindset and he has an employee mindset, and that they're two very different things. But it worked for us because I always had to, it's kind of funny because I learned negotiation skills really well because I always had to like turn him into a believer. You know, when I decided to go from a small little gym to a 16,000 square foot, you know, building that we had to build out and turn into a big health club, you know, I had to turn him into a believer for that. So yes, I definitely learned how to negotiate with him. But, you know, no, he always did come around, but he just doesn't have, you know, he just never took up to somebody and went, oh yeah, I think that's a phenomenal idea. No, no, no. It never went that way. But I don't regret any of that because he also kept me very grounded and and he made me really think through decisions, you know, that I made in business. And so if I had to convince him that I was, you know, that I was making the right decision or in something that I wanted, then I was always pretty convinced when it was, if that makes sense. Like it really made me think things through. So it was a
Yes,
good thing.
yes,
It was a good thing. But yes, you've got to
yes.
have support. You have to have some kind of support. If not, change who you're around, you know. But that doesn't mean that you're not going to have adversity and things like that along the way. You always, you know, you will. So
That's like,
did that answer your question?
yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, one of the things I've said in the podcast before is I was running my business as a solopreneur and didn't have a lot of support from family and friends really for quite a long time. And that made it so much harder. And I really regret that I didn't reach out and find a coach at the time or someone to really, you know, keep me inspired and motivated, because it's too hard to do it on your own, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, you know, people, it kind of, when I think about, you know, coming from sort of the old world, right, of business and offline and all of that, I just can't, people have no idea what they have today. They have no idea. I mean, I say there is opportunity in everything. Like, I just don't believe that people don't have opportunity today to have a better life, to make more money than they've ever made. I mean, there's just never, everything is just right at our fingertips. And so
Massive.
yeah, so for people to, you know, to not take advantage of that or to, you know, to struggle, even support systems, you know, you can find people now. I mean, even Clubhouse, like
Yeah.
Clubhouse is a new app, right? That everybody, I've been loving it. And, but even that can be a support system. So finding, like you said, finding that tribe or finding that support, you creating your own if you have to, but whatever you have to do, everyone needs that. Everyone does. So I love that you talked about that.
And like you say, social media now, anything that you love doing, whether that's knitting or, you know, entrepreneurial, so, you know, everything, you can find a club somewhere online
Yes.
for everything, can't you?
Yes. Yeah.
So you can get around the people that you want to be around. So what would you say the biggest lessons are for you, Anne, over the years? Some of the biggest lessons?
I would say always look for the gaps in anything you do. Always look for how you can differentiate yourself in anything you do. Get a coach or a consultant to work with. Don't take the hard road. Don't take the slow road. It's still going to be hard. Even if you're working with a coach or a consultant, business is still hard, right? It's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. So work with someone that can partner alongside you. And I'm not saying that just because I am one. I am one because I had one and it was such a game changer. So to have that available is just crazy to not take advantage of that. It's just your faster path to success. That's why, you know, I saw, I was doing some research and I saw that there are 1,700 new millionaires a day in the world.
Yes.
A day.
Yes.
Now, back when I was growing up in business, you didn't even know them. You know, you didn't even know a millionaire, right? Or they were few and far between. And now it's sort of normal. So, but that's because we've been able to speed the shortcut and we've been able to shortcut the path because of coaches and consultants and information and things like that. So I would say those two things. And then always look for the opportunity, no matter what the situation is. There is an opportunity. in every challenge, there is an opportunity.
Very, very nice. And what are some of your biggest, your highs, the things that, just been moments where you're like, I love this anyway, but this just takes it to another level? Some of your real highlights.
Gosh, I would say, well, if you're talking about with clients, with the results, I helped someone go from 0 to 7 figures in like right under a year, which was very exciting to just do that. I've had a lot of big wins with clients and things like that. But I think for myself, I really believe that it was, being able to build 5 other businesses and sell those, because that's not common. Most, 90% of businesses fail within, 8 to 10 years. And so not only did I learn about business, how to build businesses, be successful, but I also learned them all the way to the exit. And a lot of people, so I think those are things that I'm super, super proud of. I mean, I also have books. I've written 3 books, and, but I've been a speaker on stages, and I love to give back. I love to share. I love to, pour value into other people. To me, that's a big win. And to have platforms like this or social media to be able to do that is just, it's like, that just energizes me. I love it. I just,
You can
yeah.
It's
Yes. I'm passionate about that. But yeah, I think, there's been a lot, but there's been a lot of tough times too. It's not all been easy. It sounds good when you look at it. I look back at all of it and I think, oh yeah, that was pretty cool that I did that. But then I think, oh, I just remember what I went through and how hard it was. So
you grow.
Sorry, Anne, I was just going to say, I've just heard this quote the other day from Elon Musk, and I hadn't heard it. Apparently it's quite famous. And he said, being an entrepreneur is like chewing glass and gazing into the void. And
gazing into the what?
Into the void. And he was on Clubhouse actually, and he was doing, the room ran for about 16 hours. Mm-hmm. Somebody said to him as well, what do you suggest for someone who's not sure about becoming an entrepreneur? What advice would you give? And he went, don't do it.
Don't do it. I did hear that. I did not get to see him on Clubhouse. I wanted to, but no, that's absolutely right. I always, when I have conversations or calls with people and they're like not ready to invest in their success, right? And I don't get too many of those anymore.
Well, I love that phrase.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't think you're quite ready for entrepreneurship, because if you're so afraid of investing in your success, what else are you going to be afraid to accomplish or even try? And so to me, it's kind of a red flag, that they may not be ready, but I don't know. So yeah, that's interesting, but it's not an easy road. And, when I came online from having brick and mortar businesses and all of that, it was a whole different world that I had to learn again, even though I understood the fundamentals of business and marketing and sales. By then I had understood all that, even coming into the online world was a completely different animal that I had to learn. So you can't ever, you'll never know it all, right? You can't ever quit learning, but you can't ever, I think in this day and age, you can't not invest in your success because you'll get left behind. Like it's moving so fast that you'll probably fail before you have success if you don't do that. That's my opinion, at least.
No, I agree with that, because you just can't lose the momentum, can you?
No, that's right. That's right.
That's really what you said.
So what's next for you, Anne? What's the next steps with your business and your coaching platform?
Oh my goodness. I want to do more. I definitely want to do more speaking. And that's something that I kind of quit doing because I had brick and mortar businesses and everything. And I felt like I sacrificed so much time through those years that when my husband's retired and we love to travel, and, my grandkids and my kids are 12 hours away. So I want to have a mobile business, but I kind of quit speaking, unless it was local, because I didn't want to take that time away because I had done that for so many years. But now I'm kind of at this place where, okay, I think I really, before the pandemic, my goal was to just start at least traveling and maybe speaking once a month and getting on bigger stages and things like that. So I think that still is something that I'm really aspiring to do as soon as all of this is over. But right now I just want to keep doing what I'm doing, and I want to make it bigger, but I value my time so much. So it has to work. It has to work. My business model has to work with my time. That's the most important thing.
Very nice. Very nice.
That's a great takeaway as well, isn't it? You've got to find that balance.
You do.
And I've heard someone else say this, Brendan Burchard, he says, you've got to make sure the main thing stays the main thing. And I'm sure that with you, Anne, because you are an inspiring woman and you've got these wonderful success stories, and I could see that you get lots of opportunities and invitations, and it's tempting, isn't it, to, I'll do this and I'll do that, but we really have to prioritize that, as you said, that stays in line with your business model.
Yeah. You bring up a good point too about around boundaries. And I am very, very guarded of my time. I had someone reach out to me yesterday through Messenger, and she wanted to do a call with me to talk about working, with her. And she said, well, it might have to be Saturday. And I said, I don't do calls on Saturday. If you can't find, I have, sometimes on Friday, or it will have to be Monday, but I am very guarded around my time. Yes, and even when I am going to travel and be with my triplet grandkids, and I'm going to spend that time with them, I will move I'll move clients, and I'll crunch everybody in before I go, so that when I'm there, I can get up early in the morning, just knock out the stuff I need to do that I want to do, and then I'm done, and I can enjoy that time. So that's something that nice. To me, it's all around having a business where you also have a lifestyle. And we maybe didn't always have that opportunity in business before, but we do now. And so I think it's a really important thing for people to have those boundaries. Like I said, you can make another dollar, you can't make another minute. So it's a really important thing for people to do.
That's it. There's so many tools now, isn't there? Like with your scheduling, if you want to get your marketing out there and your posts and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
I know, because I was using a couple. I was using Later, not that long ago, actually. And then I stopped using it. But you know what? Just through that process of stopping using it, I found it so much more stressful, because it's like I'm having to think all the time, right? What's going out today, or what's going out next week? Whereas when you can bulk it all up, it's incredible. So there's so many tools that we have available to us now.
It's funny you say that, which this is probably a good takeaway for people too. I think you have to do what works for you. So I am not that person that will sit and bulk things up. I don't work like that. No, I'm creative on the fly. That's the way I work. I always used to say, I fly by the seat of my pants. In some ways I do. And that's sort of the creative side of me. So I just get in a routine, where I say, okay, I need to go, write my post or whatever for the day. I wish I was somebody who could block that. I teach people block it, and they're like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. I don't do that because it's just not the way I'm wired. So I think you have to find what really works for you, but whatever you do, you have to find your routine, and you have to be consistent, and you have to stick with it, and you have to be disciplined. So it's going to be a little different for everyone. And you're clearly way more organized than I am, Emma, for sure. So.
Right.
I'm the organized.
I'm on.
And I'm then more like you, and like la la la. And she's been really, really good for me though, because we balance each other. I think we were laughing yesterday. She's quite bossy. She'll be like blah 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 blah. We're doing this.
I love it.
It's funny. After we had that conversation, you're breaking up a fraction. After we had that conversation yesterday, I went to my partner. I've been with my partner like 20 odd years. Love him to bits, drives me insane as well, but I do love him to bits. We're not married yet. I have to put that in. I have to always add that bit. But I went over to Matt and I said to Matt, do you think I'm bossy? He was like, hello. We've got 3 girls, so he's got it from every direction. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, I have to tell you a funny story. So I always tell people, when you're young, you're called bossy as a female, right? But when you're older, you're a leader.
Oh, there we go. That's it. I'm grabbing that one. Love that.
That's right.
Oh, Anne, you've been amazing. You've been amazing. And it's so lovely to hear your stories and just hear the success that you've had, and the challenges. But the fact that you're stuck at it and you're still doing it and you're still loving it, and you've still got a big vision for where it is that you want to go. That's incredible.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So
Thank you so much.
where can our listeners reach you? We'll make sure we put your details in the strapline underneath and everything, but how can we reach you if they want to know more?
Yes, absolutely. Well, you definitely can find me on Facebook. I also have a Facebook group. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Clubhouse now. I'm becoming a regular on Clubhouse. I've been moderating a lot of rooms and having a blast on there. That is like, I think they created that app for me, quite honestly.
Oh, I feel exactly the same. I love it. It's amazing.
It's the stage that for me, I said I wanted to do more speaking. So it's the stage that, we've been looking for. And but the thing I love about it is people come into your room. So that if they like your title, you're curating the right audience. And that's what I love. Whereas if you go out and speak, you may or may not be talking everybody in the room might not be the right audience.
You're right.
Yeah. So I think oh my gosh, it's a phenomenal app and I'm just absolutely loving it.
Perspective, isn't it? You can test your audience, you can test your message.
Yes.
Without any expense, without hiring a venue, without paying for advertising. It's great. It's a really great tool. And so much.
No, that's true. I got a speaking engagement coming up the end of March. I was asked to speak at the entire state of Missouri, the Women's Realtors Council, on marketing, establishing your personal brand, all being seen as the expert, all of that. And so I am super excited about it. It's around my book, but I'm excited about it because I'm going to actually try everything out on Clubhouse that I'm going to talk about before I get on that stage and talk. And so I think it's a great platform, like you said, to try things. And I'm super excited about it. So, yeah.
And I've just pressed the little bell next to your name, so anytime you're curating a room, it'll ring, so I should be jumping in
Well, thank you. This has been so fun. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you so much. It's so lovely. I love your accent. I love the American accent. And you know what? It's funny, on Clubhouse just recently, last night, I was running a room last night. Me and Felicity were on a room. It went on for like 5 hours. It was amazing. All these women were jumping in. It was incredible. But they kept saying how much they love the English accent. I'm like, oh my God, I just love the American accent.
No, it's so funny because the first thing I was like, oh, I love that accent. I just love it. I've never heard anyone say they love an American accent. That is so funny.
I love it.
I've never heard that.
I just think it's always sounds so happy and so bubbly and so full of life. Don't you think, Felicity? Like with Kate in the room last night, she's just so full of life and energetic, and
that is
it's
so
lovely.
Funny. I would have never thought that. In fact, there was a meme that was going around Facebook talking about different accents and people saying, oh, I love your Australian accent. Oh, I love your English accent. And I love this and I love that. And then they said no one ever, I love your American accent.
I'm a first. There we go. I love it.
So the fact that you said that just made me laugh.
I love it. You've been amazing. Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I look forward to being a connection with both of you and getting to know you all better as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
We will for sure. You take care. Thank you so much. Take care, Felicity. See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
See
Thank
ya.
you.
Bye.
Bye.